1st of March today, which means that officially it's springtime. This is my first trip of the year. Normally I like to fish in January and February. It's sometimes one of my favourite sort of periods. Fish are very localised, feeding spells are very, tight, and you can really get on some nice fish, and they also have their wonderful immaculate winter colours. But this year's been a bit of a disaster because, let's face it, we've had low pressure system after low pressure, and I'm not talking about a little bit of low pressure, I'm talking about lots of low pressure. It's been really crap weather since the start of, well, nearly mid-December right through until now. This is the first weekend where we actually haven't had a major storm system come in. Water tables are through the roof, flooding everywhere. So it's been a while getting out on the bank, but I'm finally out, and I'm here on a lake in County Laois near Tullamore called Finor. Now Finor's setup is it was basically dug by Bordnamona. This used to be a whole peat bog, and they dug out a lake here. It became a trout fishery, and then that kind of fell to the wayside. And a group of anglers came in called, the club is called the Carp Anglers Club of Ireland, CACI for short, and they decided to take over this lake and stock it. Now they put in some decoy original fish, so they have a good sort of mishmash of Irish strain. They also imported fish from the UK, and the fish that came in are real fast growers and absolutely stunning. So they went in a number of years ago, and this lake has since really flourished. Forecast for this particular weekend was not really much in the way of wind, but it was to be cold, and there was to be snow, hail, sleet, and pretty crap conditions. Now the snow, the sleet and the hail hasn't come, and in fact every time I go into my quick Met check look to see what's happening with the weather, it's changing all the time. Now what they're saying is we're going to get a bit of a cold night. There was meant to be rain today, it didn't hit us, thank God. And so I'm going to give you a bit of a run through. Look, I'm not going to catch anything here this session. I just don't feel the confidence. I'm talking to the locals about this place, and they reckon we're a good month to a month and a half early for this particular lake. But I wanted to come and see it, and I wanted to give it a lash anyway. So in my mind, I decided to go with maggots, because maggots are one of those winter baits that if you're ever going to nick a bite, it's going to be on maggots. But when I arrived here, see, the thing is I always tend to bring everything and the kitchen sink, and that's not a bad thing, because now and again you're going to need the extra bits and pieces. So I brought the maggots, but I also brought some pop-ups and other bits and pieces just as a backup. So when I got here, I had to plumb around to find masses of carpet weed all over the place. Not exactly your ideal maggot presentation material. So it was a case of, what do I do now? Now I'm fishing around, I've measured it out, I'm casting to the edge of the island there and out, and it's about 92 to 100 yards. The problem is with a PVA bag full of maggots into a headwind cast, it slows it down and it's struggling to hit the distance. Also the fact that every time it hit the bottom, it was just chocker with weed, and everywhere I've gone out, I've found the rods around, I've had a good look around, I've had a lead about, and it's weed. Now the weed's not particularly deep. I think it's only about maybe 1.5 to 2 inches off the bottom. It's a kind of a real thick matted kind of weed. It's not really like a milfoil, it's certainly not like a Canadian. I've not really seen it before, but it's a very strong bottom weed. And even on the edges, you can actually see it. It's grown quite heavily all around the margins. And that's unusual, but that's because we've not really had any major frosts this year. I think we may have had one, possibly two, for the whole winter, and now it's March. Now there was meant to be a frost last night, it didn't really materialise. They're talking about a heavy frost tonight. But again, the weed has established itself now, and it's getting going. Now the weed is full of food, there's a lot of small little pea mussels in it, and snails. So the fish in here are going to grow. Now the fish are a double stocking of different types. Now originally they put in Irish carp. They were kind of from the decoy strain, and they've grown quite well, and they're now hovering around the, I believe they're 15 to 18 pound mark. Some of them are at lower doubles, obviously. They also then imported from England a number of fish from an importer, and they brought them in, and they stocked, I think, something in the region of about 250 English carp into this lake. Now I'm going to have to apologise, but the geese are being a bit loud. The geese on this lake in particular are the guardians of the lake. They hunt off anything, otters, anything that comes in here to have a fish around. They don't like them, and they see them off. So anyway, there's a stocking of English carp in here. Now these English carp grow really well, and already they reckon that the majority of them are well into double figures, and this lake could do something quite special this year, 25 plus. I don't know exactly what the lake record is here at the moment. There's a lot of secrecy here. A lot of guys who live local, who fish it, don't tell anyone about their captures. So I can't keep you up to date with what's been going on. So what else can I do on this video apart from waffle, which is what I've just done? Well, as I said, this is finor. It's an ex-trout lake. It's now a carp lake. There's pretty much only carp and eels in here. There's not that many eels, but it's just mainly carp. There may be the odd tench, but that's about it. And there's two strains of carp, as I said. One from decoy, one from England. The English fish are going to grow, and they're really, really pretty as well. So I thought what I'd do in this video is kind of just a bit of a ramble job, talk about a bit of new equipment I've got over the winter, and bring you through it and tell you what I think. And look, I'm not going to show you any fish this session. I put money on it. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, but I doubt it. Now, going back to, as I said, when I got here, I found out that the weed was everywhere, and weed is not conducive to putting maggots out. Now, what I decided to do was to create a bed of maggots off the island there and fish chods over it with pop-ups. Now, I'm using the sticky krill, and I'm just fishing single hook baits over the maggots. The idea being that the maggots sitting on top of the weed, because the water's really, really cold, it's only about 2 or 3 degrees, as they go down in 6 to 8 feet of water, they're not going to sort of wriggle around too much. They're not going to get too buried into the actual weed itself. Any carp coming along might have a bit of a nosh on them, and it might stimulate a couple more to come in and investigate. And obviously then nice little sort of sticky krill 14mm pop-up sitting in amongst it all, they might have a go. It's just an idea. So I've got 2 rods off there, and what I decided in the far corner across here was to cast a bait and drop it in as close, well, it's not too close to the far corner, but there's a bog area, and most of the lake is, as I said, if you look at it, it's very gravelly, there's rocky, and then there's weed, but over in the far corner there, it's still a bit of a bog there, and it's warmer. So apparently that's not a bad winter spot. So I've decided to put a long range one, just a single hook bait over there, and a couple of spods of maggots. Now, what I will say, it's about 135 to the far corner there. So in a headwind like this, even with the best of gear, you're going to struggle to put a bait out. Luckily for me, I can walk all the way around, drop it out, and then walk it all the way back. So it's a bit of a cheat, but you know what? You have to pull a few strokes now and again. So as I said, I'm going to show you a few bits and pieces of items of tackle that I'm using and what I picked up over the sort of the winter months, ready for the new season. So I'm fishing with my high essives. These are the Free Spirit 13-foot custom built high essives. Now I've custom built them because I wanted them as more of a casting tool. If I'm using a lot of PVA bags, which I tend to a lot, it would give me the option of being able to welly out a PVA bag. 13 foot, they have a 22-inch butt section. Standard build on most rods is 19 inches to the actual reel seat, but what the idea of being, if you're into long range casting, is that when you extend your arm out and you have your reel seat in your hand, you should have the butt resting into your armpit. Now on a 19-inch, obviously that will come to about there on me. So what I decided to do, as I said, is bring it in the extra couple of inches. So now I have mine set for 22 inches. So these are custom built for me. Now, the reels are something special. They're the tartiest of tarts. These are the Shimano 12,000 XTB magnesiums. Now, stupid money, absolutely crazy. They're a beautiful reel. The oscillation is so super slow. The line lay is so mint perfect. Now, not everyone's going to sort of want these, and not everyone's going to be able to afford them. But if you could, well, look, I was lucky and I decided to jump in with both feet, and I had no regrets. They're silly money, as I say. But they're sitting on top of my Jag system, and I'm using the Jag lockdowns on the back here. Now I have to say I'm very impressed with the Jag lockdowns. The actual inserts themselves can be configured. You can take them out and use tighter ones to lock it down, so you really squeeze the butt in, so it takes a lot of pressure for it to pull out. Or you can have it as open and loose, so you just drop them in and you can lift them out. It's configurable, which is great. Jag 316 buzz bars, and then I'm using the Jag stage bites. Now these are kind of great if you're fishing on wood platforms like this. I could have set up on the grass, probably would have been just as nice, but I thought with the stage in here I may as well go ahead and use the Jag stage bites. Now they're really dinky. They have a built-in unit on top that allows you to screw in. It's like a screwdriver. As you take out the actual insert, the screwdriver is attached to it, so you can then screw in the actual base into the actual wood itself, and it locks down tight, and it is really sturdy. Nothing's going to really shift it. Now a buddy of mine who's fishing down the way, Mark, he was kind of saying, well, if I was using it, I'd have to have maybe the goalpost set up and have 2 of them at the front and 2 of them at the back, just so that I knew that if I got a violent take, they wouldn't go, you know, especially if it's rotten wood or whatever. Yeah, look, possibly you could do that, but the outlay is obviously going to be a lot more expensive. Now I'm obviously using my Fox NTXRs. When I bought them first, I initially had an issue with them. They started to give me faults on 2 heads, sent them back, and the replacement heads I've had out have not let me down, and they've been superb. I really love them. I find them much nicer than Delcam alarms, much easier to use, and yeah, I can't complain. The snag ears I'm using are the Tasca ones, and these are coming into the Tasca ear adapters. And then in the bottom of the ear adapters, I also have the tiny little 2-inch chains from Tasca, which make it a very neat little setup. And then I'm using the Tasca sensor light heads. These are designed to be a little bit like the Corda Stows. Just same sort of principle, just a different implementation. I actually prefer these. I think they are better looking and more functional. And I have to be honest with you, I owned a set of Corda Stows. I found the line clip very unforgiving on the line, and I found it did damage the line, whereas these don't at all, which that's my preference. So that's my rods. So let's go and have a look at my next thing that I bought. So as promised, this is my Fox Super Brolly system. Now, a year ago, I bought the Fox Super Brolly and found it an amazing piece of kit. Slept on it, slept under it for the whole of spring, summer and autumn. You won't really get away with using something as light as just an open fronted brolly. I know some hardcore anglers do, but I'm an old fart and I just can't be doing it anymore. I like to have a little bit of luxury, but I do sort of still fish my very quick overnighters, even though it's winter. So I don't want to be carrying loads of and putting up a huge big bivvy. So something like this system will be a little bit more applicable to my kind of fishing. So as I said, why the system? Well, I wanted to have the fact that I could zip on a whole front section here to make it an enclosed bivvy. Because let's face it, in this country, the weather cuts up rough more than it's fine. So you need to have something that's going to protect you from the elements. So it's pretty much exactly the same system, except for the way they've implemented the actual zip-on front part. They have allowed you to have a little bit of a porch, which is a nice feature. The other thing is you can either zip it from the very bottom down, I mean up, so that like a normal doorway, or you can have it so that you can actually zip it from the top down. And what I like about that is it gives me the ability to sit inside the bivvy or the umbrella system and look out and still have all the front porch on, keeping me dry if it's a bit drizzly or whatever. 4 storm poles make it really rigid, and even though it is an umbrella system, it's quite cavernous, it's quite big inside. Now, on the inside, I have the Avid Respite X bed chair, which, let me tell you, is a massive chair. And I love it. It's really comfortable. And on that, I have my huge, massive Fox EvoTech king size, and that's the Ventec all season. So as I said, even though it's a small area on the inside, you're able to stick an awful lot of gear in it. In fact, mate down the way there, Mark, he's using the Aqua Atom. Well, no, it's the Compact. And the Compact, he says, has even less space than this, which is saying something. Now, one of the reasons why they're able to get away with creating so much space is they use the STI hub system on the actual spreader block. And it's a really clever little system. So, as I said, that's the Super Brolly. I will do an in-depth review on it, but it's just a quick look at it.